I knew something was off the moment I stepped into the house. It was too clean, too staged, like a showroom version of my childhood. The family photos had been rearranged, my solo recital portrait replaced by a professional shot of Erin and her picture-perfect family at some kind of vineyard. And the smell, vanilla candles instead of Mom's usual lavender, the scent of something being covered up. Camille. "You made it," my mother said, gliding into the foyer in heels too high for a home-cooked dinner. I smiled, but something in me tightened. "Where's Dad?" I asked, slipping off my coat. "Oh, he's out back, showing Erin and Jason the new fire pit," she said lightly, already turning toward the kitchen. "We've done a few upgrades." Upgrades? I hadn't heard about any renovations. Dinner was roasted salmon, asparagus, and that rice pilaf she always made when trying to impress someone. Erin and her husband Jason were already halfway through their wine, smiling like they were on a magazine cover. Dad sat at the head of the table, carving into his fish with surgical precision. It wasn't until the plates were cleared, over decaf and dessert, that the bomb dropped. "We're so glad you came tonight, Camille," Dad said, folding his hands. "We have some news." My heart beat faster. I thought maybe they were finally going to acknowledge my youth orchestra program. The community concert had been a success last week. My students had worked so hard. Maybe, just maybe, they were proud. "We've sold the house," he said. I blinked. "What?" "We closed on it last week," Mom added, as if she were mentioning the weather. "To Erin and Jason," Dad finished. "They'll be moving in after the holidays." I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. "You sold the house?" My voice cracked. "To Erin?" Mom gave a soft, sympathetic smile, the kind that felt more like a slap. "Sweetheart, you never really needed it. Erin has the kids now, and you, well, you've chosen a different kind of life." I looked at Erin, who avoided my gaze and swirled her wine. Of course she knew. Of course this had been in the works. "You always said it would be split between us," I said quietly. "That it would be ours." Dad sighed, like I was being difficult. "Camille, you're a good person. Truly. But Erin's made something of herself. She's built a real future. A legacy." "And I haven't?" I asked, stunned. "You teach music," Mom said gently, as though she were comforting a delusional child. "It's sweet, but it's not big. It's not lasting. Erin's work shapes industries. They didn't say it out loud, but I heard it clearly. You're a placeholder. She's the headline." I nodded slowly, swallowing everything I wanted to scream. The house, the only thing that still felt like home, was gone. And with it, the last illusion that I'd ever be enough in their eyes. They poured more wine, laughed about remodeling plans. I sat there, numb, watching them erase me from the family story like I'd never really belonged in it to begin with. But that was their mistake, because this time, I wasn't going to disappear quietly. 3 days after dinner, I got the official email. "Thank you for your application to the Ridgefield Cultural Grant. After careful review, we regret to inform you." I didn't even finish reading it. I just sat there at my desk, staring at the screen, heart hollow. That grant had been everything. It wasn't just about the money. It was about scaling the program, hiring real staff, expanding the orchestra, to neighboring schools. For once, I'd let myself believe something big was about to happen. I'd spent months perfecting the proposal. Late nights crunching data, writing curriculum, even filming testimonials from parents and students. I knew the odds, but I also knew the work was solid. I felt humiliated, defeated, but mostly confused. So I did something I rarely do. I reached out to a friend. Her name's Lexi. We'd grown up together. Her mom taught at the same school, where I now worked. Lexi handles community development for the city and had always cheered me on from the sidelines. I wasn't looking for special treatment, just clarity. So I texted her. Hey, got the grant rejection. Totally okay if you can't say anything. But if you have any insight, I'd really appreciate it. She called me 5 minutes later. Her voice was tight. Camille, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but you need to know. The decision didn't come down to your qualifications. What do you mean? There were conversations, unofficial ones, about your proposal being emotionally driven and lacking long-term viability. Someone with influence flagged it as risky. I frowned. Someone who? There was a pause. Your father. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. What? He's been consulting for the city on philanthropic initiatives. Apparently, he recommended the funding go to the Hartley Initiative instead. Said they had stronger financial backing and a more scalable structure. The Hartley Initiative? Of course. A well-connected arts nonprofit run by a boardroom full of donors and no actual musicians. And he called me what, exactly? Lexi hesitated. A sentimental dreamer. Said you didn't have the discipline to manage real money. That it would be a waste. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, the words ringing in my ears like an old piano out of tune. A sentimental dreamer. Not my daughter. Not the one who built a youth program from nothing. Just someone to quietly disqualify behind closed doors. He hadn't just sold the house out from under me. He was actively making sure I never had the chance to succeed, to grow, to prove him wrong. And the worst part? He probably thought he was doing me a favor, protecting me from my own ambition. I thanked Lexi, hung up, and stared out the window of my tiny apartment. The world outside kept moving. Cars passing, birds flying, life continuing as if mine hadn't just been sideswiped. But I wasn't done. He thought he could bury me under his version of success. He had no idea I was already planning my next move. I gave myself one night to wallow. One night to sit on my couch, eat frozen pizza, and question every decision that led me here. Then, the next morning, I opened my laptop, pulled up my grant application, and deleted it. Not because it was bad, because it wasn't bold enough. If they wanted scalable, I'd give them undeniable. That same day, I got an unexpected message on Instagram. Ms. Donovan? I think I found someone who can help. Can I call you? It was Mila, one of my former students. She'd been first chair violin her senior year. Shy, brilliant, the kind of kid who didn't speak much until the music started. I hadn't heard from her since she left for Juilliard. We got on a call that night. Mila told me she'd been interning with a private arts fund founded by a philanthropist named Claire Monroe, someone who actually cared about access to arts education, not just tax write-offs. She's been looking to fund pilot programs in underrepresented districts, Mila said. Programs led by people with real teaching experience. People like you. It didn't feel real, not yet, but it was the thread I needed to pull. By the end of the week, I'd revised my entire proposal. This time, no safe language. No trying to fit into someone else's definition of viable. I led with impact, stories, real outcomes. And I pitched something new. A 6-week pilot program inside an underfunded middle school in Bridgeport. One with no music department, no instruments, no budget. Claire said yes. We started small. I borrowed instruments from colleagues, recruited volunteers. I drove back and forth twice a week, sometimes using my own gas money to make it happen. But the kids showed up, eager, unfiltered, bursting with raw, chaotic energy and more talent than they knew what to do with. By week 3, we were rehearsing simple ensemble pieces. By week 5, they were writing their own melodies, and I recorded everything. Not just the music, but the moments, the laughter, the focus, the confidence starting to bloom on faces that had never been given a stage. I wasn't trying to prove anything to my parents anymore. I was building something for people who actually needed it. Something real. Something louder than their silence. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't plan for any of it to go viral. It started with a 60-second clip. Mila had come to visit during the final week of the pilot program. She filmed one of our students, Elijah, a 7th grader who hadn't said a word during the first 2 rehearsals, standing in front of the class, conducting a small ensemble of his peers playing a melody he composed. He looked so proud, so in control. Mila uploaded it to her socials with a caption that read, "This is what access to music education looks like. My former teacher built this from scratch. Imagine what she could do with support." Within 48 hours, it had over 600,000 views, and then it kept growing. Musicians shared it, educators, journalists, celebrities. Suddenly, I was fielding emails from media outlets, education coalitions, and parents across the country asking how they could bring that program to their schools. Claire, our funder, called me in tears. "Camille," she said, "this is bigger than a pilot. I want to fully back you. Statewide expansion, a real foundation. Let's do this right." That's how the Harmony Project was born. Within weeks, we had a full-time team: legal, logistics, licensing. We filed for nonprofit status, leased a small office, and launched 3 new pilot programs in different districts. Meanwhile, I kept teaching, still running rehearsals, still hauling folding chairs into school cafeterias. The work was the same. The mission was the same. But the world had finally started listening. And in the background, the rival program my father pushed the city to fund, the Hartley Initiative, was quietly imploding. Turns out, they'd spent most of the grant money on executive development retreats, aka luxury conferences in Napa, and almost none of it on students. A whistleblower leaked internal budgets to the press, and suddenly the headlines flipped. Prestigious arts program under investigation for mismanagement. City funds misused, students left behind. Lexi texted me a screenshot of the story with one word: karma. I didn't post anything. I didn't comment. I didn't gloat. Instead, I opened my laptop and edited a new proposal. One that would bring Harmony to rural schools with zero access to the arts. Let them chase headlines. I had real work to do, but I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good. Not revenge in the loud, dramatic sense. Just correction. The narrative had shifted. The girl who never did anything big had created something that couldn't be ignored. And my parents? They hadn't said a word. Not yet. But that silence? It was getting louder. They showed up without calling. I was in the middle of sorting through supply orders, tuning forks, rosin, a box of donated ukuleles, when I heard the knock on the office door. My mother stepped in first. Beige trench coat, designer scarf, and the same perfume she'd worn since I was 10. My father followed, stiff-backed and quiet. No handshake, no hug. Just the same tense energy I remembered from every awkward family dinner. "Camille," my mother said, trying on a smile like it might still fit. "You've certainly made a name for yourself." I didn't say anything. I just stepped aside and let them in. They sat on the small couch across from my desk, the same one my students sometimes used to cry on after a rough rehearsal. Somehow it felt poetic. "We wanted to talk," my father started. I waited. "We underestimated you," he said finally, each word sounding like it cost him. "Harmony is impressive, what you've built." I nodded once. I wasn't going to make this easier for him. "We're in a complicated place right now," he continued. "Our foundation is under review. The Hartley situation, well, it's gotten messy. But Harmony, it's untouchable. Clean, beloved, scalable. There it was. He wasn't here for closure. He was here for cover." "I see," I said softly. "And you're thinking what? Merge Harmony with your foundation?" My mother leaned forward. "It would help both sides, darling. You'd gain infrastructure, visibility, and we could rebuild our reputation." That was when it clicked. They still didn't see me. Not really. Just another strategic asset. A well-behaved daughter with the potential to launder their failures in a way that looked like family unity. I stood up. "I appreciate the visit," I said, voice even. But I'm not interested in being your redemption story. My father flinched just slightly. I built Harmony without your support, without your funding, without your belief. And now that it's thriving, you want to fold it into something you controlled? Something that nearly imploded? My mother opened her mouth, but I held up a hand. I'm not angry. Truly. I'm done needing anything from you. That's the difference. They sat in silence, unsure how to respond. I walked to the door and opened it gently. I have a class starting in 10 minutes. You're welcome to stay for the student recital. But if you're here to make a deal, I'm not interested. They stood, stiff and formal, and walked out without another word, and I let them go. No final speech, no dramatic tears. Just peace. Not the kind that comes from being understood, but the kind that comes from no longer needing to be. A few weeks later, I found myself walking through my old neighborhood. The trees were taller now. The sidewalks cracked in the same, familiar places. I passed the house slowly. Their house now. Errands. New shutters. Fresh paint. A tire swing where our old climbing tree used to be. I didn't stop. I didn't need to. Instead, I kept walking until I reached the little park 3 blocks down. The one where I used to bring my violin as a teenager and practice alone after dinner. It was still there. Same rusty benches, same wind threading through the trees like an old melody. I sat for a while, not sad. Not angry, just still. There was grief, yes, but not regret. Because the version of me they mourned, the one who might have stayed quiet, chosen a safer path, made herself small to be accepted. That version didn't exist anymore. She never really had. Later that night, I stood backstage at the State Youth Arts Summit. The auditorium was packed. Parents, students, educators, donors. Over 100 kids from across the state sat poised with their instruments, eyes shining under stage lights. My orchestra, our harmony. I stepped up to the podium, raised my baton, and took a breath. In that moment, I didn't think about what I'd lost. I thought about what we'd built. No inheritance, no family name, just a purpose no one could take away from me. The music began, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free.